Good morning, everyone. So I'm in a public location right now. So I am masked up at the moment. I'm probably going to stop my video feed in a little bit anyway, but I will leave the I will leave that up right now. So hopefully, let me make sure. Hopefully my internet connection is going to hang out okay. Probably be better when I do not have my video, because that will help. Chat over here so I can see it. But hopefully I'm going to get this pulled up on my, iPad. I'm not sure why it's not. There we go. Excellent. So now I can have the chat on my iPad and perfect. Okay. So I hate not seeing everybody. Let's see if how I can make this work. Participants. Okay. All right, so hopefully everybody can see my captions. Feel free to post anything in the chat. We've got about 1 more minute before we get started. Just so everybody knows you're in the right place. I'm just going to put this up right here and I'll make sure I'll leave, which I will also make sure that I put in the chat. Let me go ahead and put that in the chat right now. bit.ly/social narratives NJ. All right, hopefully, yep. Oops, don't click on that. I spelled it wrong. bit.ly. Who knows what that's going to go to? But.ly, who knows? NJ. All right, let's hope that I spelled this one right. Okay, so hi everybody, good morning. I'm Beth Poss. Thank you guys so much for coming and joining me today. Love having all of you guys here. We've got like a nice crowd in here, just enough. And let me make sure I've got the chat up on my So I am in a, if I don't have my video on right now, I am in a public location with a mask on, and my internet is not necessarily awesome at this moment. So please excuse the fact that I don't have my video up for you guys, but hopefully everybody is. And one thing I would love to know as we're getting started, are you guys virtually teaching virtually this year, or are you at this point in the classroom? So it would be awesome to get an idea of that. So hopefully, I'm really hoping my internet is not going to go kaflooey on me at all. If it is, I will switch over to a different, so I see Amber's, her district is virtual now. So yeah, I'm hearing from a lot of different folks. So let me give you like the 2-second version of me, and some other people are half virtual and half in person. Let me give you guys the 2-second version of me and put up the link, which is also in the session notes that are on the Google sheet that that ATNJ put out. And some people are fully in person, but we'll go virtual if needed. So you guys can get to the session slide deck at bit.ly/social narratives NJ. Hopefully I typed that correctly in the chat. There's also the QR code right there for you guys. My name is Beth Poss. As I said, I am a speech language pathologist and assistive technology consultant. And I do want to let you guys know that I do work for Lessonpix, but this is not really a Lessonpix presentation, although of course I'm going to show some awesome things from Lessonpix for this. So what is a social narrative, right? So it's a story or a narrative written to support an individual kid or a class sometimes by promoting social and behavioral responses to a new or a challenging situation, right? And it's aimed at highlighting relevant cues and giving kids ways to respond that is going to be pro-social for them, as opposed to impeding their social interactions. And it helps learners adjust to changes, adapt their behaviors, or teach specific social skills. So a few ways that we could use it. And you might know, but in case you don't, social narratives are an evidence-based strategy. So when we're talking about our response to intervention and that we need to be evidence-based, this fits right in there. We've got that documentation for it. So you're hearing me say social narratives, right? So you might be thinking, well, what's a social story, right? You've heard about social stories probably often more. So I just want to clarify for the presentation right now is that social stories is a trademarked term that refers very specifically to the work of Carol Gray, and who is been an absolute lead in field. You can look at her format. I do adhere in many ways to it, but not completely. And so social stories are social narratives, but not all social narratives are social stories. So it's kind of like the rectangle and a square, like all squares are rectangles, but not all rectangles are squares. So just sort of that same idea, right? So we're going to be talking a little bit more. Would I care to put that link in the chat? I will definitely, I can't do it right now because then I'd have to get out of this to do that. I'm a little awkward with my technology at the moment. I'm not in my usual setup, but the link in the chat to the session notes are all right there. So I promise, and I'll try to put it in the link at the end when I close out of this. So I promise we'll get it in there. All the things are in there. All righty. So one other really important thing to consider while we're doing this whole thing, while social narratives and the work of Carol Gray with social stories was originally developed as a strategy for children with autism spectrum disorders, social narratives are useful for any individual of any age who experiences challenges with appropriate social communication, including those behaviors that often accompany those challenges. So this is not just for kids with autism, and I really want to stress this. This is when we talk about those evidence-based practices in response to intervention, this is something that you can use with any student. Okay, so what are some characteristics of any social narrative? It provides guidance and directions for responding to various social situations. It describes a situation specific to an individual or a circumstance while promoting self-awareness and self-management. Really important is that the language is simple and it's specific to that situation. It's not going to go into enormous detail about other things. The idea is very much to focus on what that challenge is. And the goal is to clarify social expectations so that the student can respond to meet those expectations with strategies to support them. It's not simply to say, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. It's to say, this is what we should be doing, right? We want to make sure that. So I've got an example here, and this is a real life example of a student that I worked with. Actually, I spent 3 years as an assistant principal in a gen ed typical elementary school, had, its fair share of special ed students. But Carlos was a first grade student. He was not identified with a disability, but he really was having some challenges. And during whole class time, when they would all come to the carpet, he would not sit appropriately. He would kick out at peers around him. He would get the wiggles. He would get up. He would move around. He would call out answers and make comments instead of raising their hand. And the teacher was constantly reminding him all day, every day, to sit crisscross applesauce or raise your hand. But it just didn't seem to help. And it was significantly impacting instruction and becoming a safety concern. And it came to me because I was the assistant principal, and where do kids go when they're not behaving? Yeah, they go to the assistant principal's office. Not always the best solution, but we decided we needed to come up with some strategies. So one of the things that we decided we wanted to do was to try a social narrative. And so this is sort of how we can break this down. So if we're supposed to provide guidance and directions for responding to various types of social situations, well, what we needed to do for Carlos there was to provide some visual supports and directions to help him respond to the social situation of being part of a group, right? So then if in the social narrative, we're supposed to describe a social situation specific to an individual, while promoting self-awareness and self-management, we needed to describe the expectations of carpet time for Carlos, specific to that classroom, and we needed to do that step by step, right? One thing that's really important that you need to consider, right, with that when you're describing those expectations is the first thing that you actually need to do adjust your expectations to better meet that student need. So one of the first things that I'll talk a little bit about one of the first things that we did with Carlos in a minute, right? That we changed some of those expectations so that it wasn't quite as challenging for him. So then we need to use simple language that's specific to that situation and write it from a positive perspective, right? And we had to include by performing the expected behavior, if Carlos exhibited that behavior, the expected behavior, that it will positively impact him in class. So like when I keep my feet in my space, it will make my friends happy. They will want to sit next to me, right? And clarify those social expectations. We want to break down the expectations of that carpet time step by step, with simplified language and visual supports for this kiddo. So I'm going to show you some examples of kind of what we wrote for Mr. Carlos in just a minute. But when we're writing it, we're going to identify the situation that the student's having difficulty with. Then we're going to write that story in first person or third person. So not a you, right? It's I or he or she, right? Or they, or them, depending on gender identity and all of that wonderful stuff, right? We're going to use positive language to provide the expectations of the situation or the behavior. And we're going to use two main types of sentences, right? Descriptive, we're going to state the facts, like when it's carpet time, I need to join my class's group, right? And then directives, identify responses and direct the behavior, include what will happen if they perform the behavior correctly, and use visuals to help with understanding engagement. So let's look at the text of the social narrative that we created for Carlos. Okay, so sometimes it's hard to sit at school. At carpet time, so that's a fact, right? For him, sometimes it is hard for him to sit at school. And at carpet time, I can sit on the carpet or I can sit in a rocking chair. So that's one of the adjustments that we made to those expectations. It might have just been way too hard for him to sit in that undefined space on the floor and keep his legs and his body to himself. So we gave him an additional option. I can sit on the carpet or I can sit in a rocking chair. If I choose to sit near a friend, we also gave him that choice of being able to sit farther away from the group or together with the group. I need to keep my body to myself. If I choose to sit in the rocking chair, I can rock, but I need to keep the chair in one place, so can't like rock that chair across the classroom. We've all seen kids do that, right? And if I want to talk or answer a question, I need to raise my hand. If my teacher or a friend is talking, I need to wait my turn. When I sit and wait my turn to talk, I can have fun at carpet time. My friends and my teacher are happy too. So we've got facts, we're describing what those expectations are, and we're giving him some alternatives so that he can display those expectations successfully. And we're letting him know what that positive consequence at the end is. When I sit and wait my turn and talk, I can have fun at carpet time and my teacher and my friends are happy, right? So let's talk about some different places that we can find social narratives, right? There's a lot of different things out there. I'm gonna see if I can do this. I'm not sure if I can or not. So we'll see really quickly if this lets me, I'm gonna try to be a little tricky. I'm used to working in a completely different situation, but let's see, don't save that. And let's see if I can go in and find something, all right. Okay, so I'm gonna see if I can share. I'm not sure that I'm gonna be able to. Let's see if I can share my screen from my iPad that I'm on to be able to show you. So touch, I'm sorry, I'm like getting a little distracted here trying to figure out my technology. So Touch Autism has some wonderful pre-made social narratives. It's also an app, this is an iPad app. It's also, excuse me. It is also an app that you can, let's see if I can share this content. It is also an app where, okay, let's see if this is gonna let me get to it. Okay. So I'm not sure if you're seeing my iPad, and I'm not sure if you're seeing my iPad or if you're seeing my presentation. Either way, it's an iPad app, iOS iPad app that has the ability for you to create your own, but it also comes with some free social narratives, and then there's packs that you can unlock. So just for you to see kind of an example, there's, if you guys are able to see this, I don't know if you're not or not, talking to people is fun. There's a whole one on talking. I'm not going to spend too much time on this one because I'm not sure that you're seeing. So it gives them the ability to talk, to go through a story and see different things. And then it takes you into some choices that you can make. For example, in this one, right? So talking about their favorite colors, talking about favorite places to go and such. I'm not 100% sure if you guys are seeing this. So I am gonna stop sharing from my iPad. Oh, you know what? You didn't see it. So let's go ahead. We'll try this one more time. We'll try this one more time. So now you guys, okay, now you guys are actually
when
seeing
to
it.
do
Yes.
them. I can talk about, I can talk about talking to
Okay,
people
hopefully
is
we're
fun.
not, hopefully you're
so
seeing
many
it
things
now.
to talk about.
All right, so hopefully you guys are seeing it now. All right, can anybody put it and let me know if you're seeing it now? Yes, you're seeing it now, awesome. Boy, technology is not always my friend, but today it's gonna be better. So this is a social story that's it's one of the purchase things. It costs like a few dollars to purchase a whole package of the social stories. They're not too expensive, but if you're looking for something that's pre-made, that has a little bit more. It has that text-to-speech that goes with it. And then it gets you into your choices.
About their
so
favorite things.
They
and
needed
tell
some
people
ideas
what
on
my
how to
favorite
do it.
things are too.
Gives them some options, like we could talk about
my favorite food is spaghetti. What's your favorite
so it says,
food?
my favorite food is spaghetti. What's your favorite food?
I
Then
can
we can
talk about
continue and go
plans
on.
and places. I can
So
talk
again,
about
it gives
today
because it's
after
a little higher
school.
tech,
I
it gives
have
you a few
soccer
other things.
practice.
I'm going to
Do
go
you
back
play
out
any
of
sport?
that and let's see. I'm going to stop that share. Okay. And now I'm going to share my screen again from my iPad. Share. Okay, so I think we're back to being able to see my regular screen. All right, so now, so that was touch autism. It's an, again, iPad app, touch autism. All right, next thing. Let's go next slide. All right, so let's look at some other things. We've got Lessonpix. Again, I do work for Lessonpix, but this is not simply about Lessonpix, but I do want to show you some awesome things. So if you are a Lessonpix subscriber, there are hundreds of ready-made social stories that other Lessonpix subscribers and that those of us that work at Lessonpix have created. This one, there is a link to this in the slide deck. So, and I can also paste, I can't paste that in the chat right now, but it is linked in the slide deck to Trying When It's Hard. And it's about how superheroes try when it's really hard. And we are gonna flip into that in just a second and take a look at it. This one is free. There's a few other ones that are free that are in there on some things on coronavirus and wearing masks and things like that as well. So there's one I'm going to show you. Let's go ahead and check out this one. So I downloaded it already. It's right here in the sharing center, right? This is about trying hard. All of the Lessonpix resources can be downloaded as either a PDF or as a PowerPoint. I'm going to show you this as a PowerPoint. I already downloaded it as a PowerPoint, right? I've got it right here. And I could go through this and we can read this. Some things are hard to do. Sometimes I get frustrated. When I get frustrated, I get mad. It's okay to get mad, but I don't lose my cool. I don't scream. I don't throw. I stay cool like a superhero. I can say, it's hard, but I'll try. So one of the things that I want to show you that's really cool that you can do with this is that I can go into our, Lessonpix has our PowerPoint add-in, and I'm going to show you how you can use this in PowerPoint, but also how you can use this in Google Slides, because I know a lot of us are Google Slides users. And just, so I preloaded my Lessonpix tray with some images about ways to calm down, right? So I can, as we're reading this book, we could say, wow, if the next thing that's hard, riding my bike is hard, but I'll try. And we could talk about some strategies and ideas that we could have for being able to help ourselves calm down when we get frustrated about something, right? So I can use the spinner, for example, and we can spin. And maybe one of the options is if I'm really having a hard time, I can have 5 minutes in the quiet time in the tent, right? Let me go ahead, I'm gonna close this down, and just to show you, we can do the exact same thing in Google Slides. So I have this uploaded in Google Slides, but one of the features of our, let's see where it is, right there. One of the features of Lessonpix is these play tools. And they will come up, and let me make sure. And I'm gonna just show you this as dice instead. So I'm gonna create that game, and we can roll the dice and come up with some strategies, right? So maybe one of the strategies is I can use my stretch band in order to help myself calm down when I'm having a difficult time. Let's put this up and layer that on top of it so we can see it all at the same time, right? So if I try when it's hard, sometimes I get frustrated. Well, what's something that we can do when we get frustrated? I can sit quietly on a beanbag chair with a book for 5 minutes, right? So some different things that we can do there when we might be getting a little bit frustrated. So again, that's all in Lessonpix. Again, this one is a free sample, and the link is in the presentation. So no worries about that. I'll try to put things into the chat right before we close things down. I'll show you what I did, just so you guys know what I did to put those images in the tray. So, whoops, let's go back over here. I searched in our share center how I got that spinner to work. Let me just show you. So I searched for calm. I knew we had a great set of pictures about ways to calm yourself. Let's do this in my materials. And there, right there, was ways to calm. So I found this. And I did not download this. So I just want to show you, I did not download this. I'm going to clear that tray for a second just so I can show you exactly how I did it. I did not clear that. I did not download it. I simply went here. I see all the pictures that are in this material. And I simply clicked load all and it put it in my tray. And then I'm able to go to those play tools and use it in any application that I want, right? So I've got my spinner right there and I can be able to play or use dice or use some other resources. All right, I'm gonna head back into my slide deck. So that was Lessonpix. What? Oh, okay. Some other ready-made, sorry, I thought I was like further along in the session. Some other ready-made resources that you might want to take a look at is from the Pennsylvania Autism Organization, has some great resources of ready-made social stories. This was one where I simply searched in their website for social stories, that link, and it'll give you social stories and guides for adult, managing social stories for managing, recognizing and managing anxiety, some information to Carol Gray's, relationship social stories. So you can see on all different, if you need a social story for Rosh Hashanah coming up this weekend, it's all in their social distancing. So some different resources there. And then also in, from this person blog, which is And Next Comes L, she has a whole bunch of social stories. And the nice thing about her social stories is that she uses real photographs, which is really nice. She gives a lot of information, but you can see she uses real photographs. So if you've got students that you think are gonna benefit from having real photographs, that's a great resource to use as well. Some other ideas for creating your own resources, for creating your own social stories. So our music teacher that I worked with, she decided that she needed for her older students, like those 4th and 5th graders, that they would really be motivated by that Bitmojis. And we know we have this whole Bitmoji craze right now, right? Everybody's making their Bitmoji classrooms, which personally I find a little overwhelming, but I loved how she did this here in her slide deck. So her slide deck, I'm not gonna put it in present mode, I'll just go through it. She just found a cool slide deck and talked about what those expectations were, right? And use those Bitmojis to be able to illustrate and provide those directions that she had. I did want to show you that if I really wanted to get fancy, we could, when we were talking about this, we could pull up, let me see if I can find it, if it's what I've got in here. Here we go. So I made a tray of musical instruments in Lessonpix if I wanted to, and I could use those to create that same thing with those play tools and be able to talk about that if I wanted to in that music. So the same kind of ideas. And there's other spinners that you could set up. So some ways of making those, these social stories, particularly if you're doing something on screen, a little bit more interactive, engaging. But this is my favorite slide in the whole thing, is that not every dance, like, so one of her things is dance when it's time to dance, but not every dance has to be a fortnight dance. So let's look at some variations on social narratives, because not every social narrative has to be a long drawn out story. Sometimes we need something quicker and a little more simple, especially if we've been going over that social story, that social narrative, and be able to keep reviewing it, but we might want at times to be able to refer to it a little more quickly. Okay, so you can create a social strip. This can be a much shorter version. It could be as long. You could have a comic strip that had multiple, a graphic novel, right, basically, that has multiple pages. But if you've been working, for example, on playground skills, When I'm on the playground, I should not push my friend down. When I'm on the playground and I see a friend, I should say hi. And we've got our little cartoon here. So this one was created. There's two of my favorite resources for creating cartoons and graphic novels and comic strip type resources are Pixton and Storyboard That. They are both freemium resources, so you can get quite a bit using it completely for free, and luckily with both of those there's no ads, but then you're limited with some of the graphics that you can use. So I'll take you into, this one was created with Storyboard That, so let's take a look at Storyboard That. It's telling me I've been working on my story. Okay, I got it. So I'm in Storyboard That. If I go into creating a new scene, it's automatically kind of going to give me these three. I can add or delete cells, I can move cells, I can copy cells, and you basically are starting with a background. So if I wanted to start with a school scene, I could start with a classroom, for example, right? And I can simply pop that in. I can make some edits and some changes, so if I want it to look more like my classroom or less like my classroom. And all of the things that I want to put in this are right here. So if I want to put a character in it, I can go right to this. I do like the fact that I can make the characters. So let's say, let's go, so I can look at teens. Let's find a teen perhaps. They are a little kind of cooler, right? You can find a lot of things. And I like the fact that we've got different types of people that we can put on there, different body types. I can change hair, and I can change skin tone, right? I can change clothing. So we've got some different things. I can get them into different poses. So if I wanted to have her upset because she's frustrated about something. So it's a great way, especially if you consider building these with your students, to talk about those emotions and everything that they might be experiencing when they are having some of those issues. And I can have her sit down and update that pose, and I can have her sit right there in her seat, right? So I can continue, I can add my little text bubbles, I can add shapes and different resources of things that they might need to go along with stuff. So nice, because I can really get into some different types of resources. Again, if I wanted to get into a lot more pieces to put in this scene, that's where you end up having to pay. Okay, so that's Storyboard That. Let's go into Pixton. Very, very similarly, if I start creating a new thing, it gives me one panel. If I know I want to have more than one panel, I can go ahead and add that. So if I was talking about like working in my Zoom classroom, I could add that as my background. I go ahead and find my character. And again, lots of different options with different individuals that I can put in there. So, you know, I can have this guy in his Zoom classroom, right? And we can change his outfit. This is where you'll see where there's the locks on it, where that's where you're limited. So the things that don't have a lock are free. The things that don't do, I can change colors of his, I can change hair, all of that. I can give him words. So I can give him text to say, and this is where I can get into his facial expressions, right? So we can look at, you know, this is where I'm going to get into some of those pay features. So we can, if I don't want to have any of those in there, let's just get to everything. So here's the ones you can see that are free. So I can get to some basic things that are free. So maybe he's quite upset about something, and I can give him some actions as well. So some different poses. So maybe he's like, I don't want to do my Zoom class anymore, Mom. I'm just not into this anymore, which is sort of going to be my theme with that. I can readjust him and make him some different sizes and everything too. So that is Pixton. Pixton has an EDU version, and that's this version I would suggest. That's what I'm in right now. It's called app.pixton.com, but I'm definitely in the educator version as opposed to the non-educator version. All right, I'm going to flip back in here. So another thing to do, and I sort of referenced this when we were talking about Storyboard That, is writing it together. So this was written by Blake. He was having a really difficult time. He was drawing all over his desk, and all over the clipboard that the teacher had given them to work on. And so again, I was the assistant principal, and he got sent to me. And so Blake is very literate. He's a first grader. He's very literate, a very good reader, but really had challenges with focusing and appropriate social behaviors. And so we sat down and talked, and I said, you know, hey Blake, let's write a story about what you're supposed to be doing in class. Because he could tell me, he could completely articulate to me what he was supposed to be doing, that he was not supposed to be writing all over his desk. And so I said, all right, listen, Blake, you're gonna dictate this to me, and I'm gonna write it for you. And so this is exactly what he dictated to me. And so the thing that I love is when I was little, I used to draw on the desk, like 10 minutes before you walked in my office when you were little. And then he said my dad had to clean it up. You know, this was happening in the classroom, but this was his story. And so he was giving this information to me, right? I gave him a little bit of directions. I'm like, okay, so what happened at school, right? He's like, at school, I drew on the desk. And I said, anything else? At school, I drew on the clipboard. So we're getting to those facts, right? We're getting those facts. And then we're getting to what are the expectations for the behavior? I should not draw on the desk, and I should not draw on clipboards. And we've got this in first person for him. He's the one dictating it. And I wanted to get into those positive things, right? So I was like, well, what can you do instead? If I feel like scribbling, I should ask my teacher for a piece of paper. So we're giving him an alternative that was going to be appropriate, and I should only draw on paper. So what we did is we took this, we stuck it in a sheet protector thing. We didn't even wait to have to get a lemon. Oh, he illustrated. He asked if he could illustrate it. And I was like, yeah, definitely. He read it back to me. So I knew that this was at a text level that he was going to be able to manage on his own. And we taped it to his desk. So it was a reminder to him whenever he wanted to start scribbling on his desk. It was right there for him to be able to, to be able to have that. Now, some alternatives for students that might not be quite as literate as Blake is the idea of a power card. So it's a visual that uses a student's interest as motivation to teach a skill or encourage a behavior, and you can definitely pair this with a social narrative, with that longer social narrative. But it's going to act as that reminder about how or when to use that skill. So you can also, with those power cards, is have there be a character or somebody that student really admires. So if we have a student that just loves Spider-Man, we can go into a whole social story, whole social narrative about how Spider-Man waits to be called on before he answers a question, that he knows that his friends might want a chance to speak, and he does not get upset if it's not his turn to talk. So we will have done a whole lot of prep on this before we introduce this power card, but this power card can sit right on their desk. It could be on a lanyard around their neck. It could be on a lanyard around the teacher's neck. It doesn't have to be a lot of text on there. If the student's literacy skills are not as high, you could really simplify this down and just have that image of Spider-Man, because if we've reviewed the social story enough, that prompt of what would Spider-Man do, right? So what would Spider-Man do? And that, he would wait to be called on, and he knows that his friends, right? And I can be just like Spider-Man. So finding that motivation for that, for those students, for those individuals, and giving them that, using that. There's some more information about it at this link right here, that autismcircuit.net, for using that power card. So what's next when you've created something? You're going to read that story with a student or students every day, like prior to the situation. So for my friend, going back to my friend Carlos, right? Before carpet time, either the teacher or the paraeducator would review that with them. If they're able to read, great, have them read it on their own. That's exactly what we were doing with Blake. But then as the student begins to show those expected behaviors, start fading that story out. That's where that power card might come in as a prompt for them, right? And then you're just going to evaluate the effectiveness and modify it as needed. So I sort of breezed through that really fast, not quite as quick, a little more quickly than I thought I might, but that's okay. There's some additional resources here. Vanderbilt University has some awesome fact sheets and tip sheets on social stories. And University of Indiana has some amazing resources on writing and using social narratives. If you guys have any questions, I'm going to try turning on my video and seeing, so you guys can see me if you want. If you guys have any questions, feel free to either put them in the chat, or if somebody wants to unmute themselves, we have that ability to do that. And while we're doing that, I'm gonna actually escape this out of present mode so I can put some of those resources in the chat. Let's see if I move this over. I'm just trying to get this out of present mode. All right, there we go. So now I can actually put some of these resources right in the chat for you guys. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to put those things in the chat. So if you want to hang out for a minute so that you can click on them, go right ahead and do that. If not, this is your opportunity to get up and take a little break before, there's the first one, before the next, your next session. You've got a few minutes on there. Looking for the right link. So otherwise, if you guys have any questions, I'm more than happy to stick around for a few more minutes and answer them. But thank you guys so much for hanging out with me for a little bit of your time today. I'm going to pop this right in the chat. So this is the Carol Gray information. And let me go down and pop these two resources in the chat as well. So if anybody wants it. So you're welcome, Daisy. All right. So I think, and then again, Pixton, I can pop that in for everybody that wants that, and Storyboard that. But just go right into the, honestly, go right into the bit.ly, and you'll find all of the information, and I'll pop that right back up here just so for anybody that still needed that. So thanks guys, and have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll hang out for just a couple more minutes before we all get booted out for the next session. Which of those resources are available on Android? All of them, Catherine, are available on Android, except for possibly the Touch Autism. So all of them are web-based, and they will work on an Android tablet. I'm not sure if Storyboard that or Pixton has an app, but those are all, so Lessonpix, Storyboard that, and Pixton are all completely web-based and will work on any browser, and will, no issues there, or iPad. The only one that was an iPad app was the one from Touch Autism, and I am not 100% sure if that is available on Android or not. You're welcome, Alexis. So if there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer those for you. But otherwise, you guys have a great rest of your day. I would love to give another Wendy at Fiddlers, so just let me know. Let me know what you guys need, and I am always happy to help you all out. Shout out to the awesome people down in Florida at Fiddlers. You do that. Yeah, please email. So you guys have an awesome rest of your day. Still a bunch of people in there, so I won't leave until you guys kind of go on your way, just in case anybody has a question. Oh, we're good. I'm not sure if it's Mike or if it's Naomi. So we're good. So we can close down. I think everybody's kind of closing out. And I'll go ahead and hit, I can go ahead and hit stop. See. Well, you guys are the one. If I leave, it's still up. So I'll stay until there's only 5, until there's no one else. Everybody, I think we're pretty much down to the last couple people, so I'm going to go ahead and head out so that they can get the room ready for the next session. You guys have a wonderful day.